So today we are talking about listening, and let's go to our presentation. So the first part for today's lesson is you will learn how to use notes to follow a talk or lecture. So because in the listening there will be, as you have seen, there is a text and it has blank spaces and different types of that. But at the same time, you are doing the reading and note taking and also listening. So you should be really good at it. And it needs some multitasking here. So in here, we will study how to take notes so that we can use that when we are writing the answers, and also how to identify informations needed to complete notes or sentences. So it helps us to find which ones are like the keywords and which informations that we hear should we pay attention to and take them as a note so that it can help us in completing our sentences. Also how to recognize the language of comparison and contrast to predict ideas in a talk. So when you see the listening and in the paper you see some blank spaces and stuff, sometimes or most of the times you can predict what will be the answer. Like is it going to be a name or a date or like some information about some special thing. So when you know that what are you waiting to hear, the moment you hear it, you know that this is the answer. So you have to take that as a note. So today we'll practice some of these. So the first one, the first practice that we have is the second practice. It says when you listen for information to complete notes in the listening test, you need to listen carefully to identify and select the correct information. Okay. Look at notes A to E and listen to another lecturer talking about structure, advantages, and disadvantages of being a sole trader. Decide which notes are correct and which are not. Correct any notes which are wrong. So this information A to E is about advantages and disadvantages of being a sole trader. So you listen to this listening and decide which ones are correct. But before that, we have to read this to have an idea before what these are and see what are the keywords. So the A says a sole trader can start a business without registering with company's house. So this information say a sole trader is a keyword and start is a keyword, business without registering with company's house is also keywords, and then imply the BS says implying other people is not possible for a sole trader. So implying not possible, again, sole trader are the keywords. And C says sole traders must pay tax on their earning every month. So sole traders tax and their earning every month are the keywords. And D says a sole trader might pay more tax than a company pays. So sole trader, again, pay tax, more tax is a keyword, and then a company pay, and then a company pays. So company is also a keyword. And it says lately more people like teachers and computer programmers are becoming sole traders. So lately teachers, computer programmers, sole traders are the keywords. Okay, so I'm gonna play the listening. Okay. Okay. Okay, let's listen to this.
Track 43.
Thank you, Dr. Lethbridge, for your introduction. I'd now like to move on to the details of each type of business structure and discuss the advantages and disadvantages of each, starting with the sole trader. This is simply a person who runs a business alone. On the practical side, there's no need to register with Companies House, which means the sole trader is not legally the same as a registered company. The trader can simply choose any name and start trading without paying any fees. There's no need to register an office, so the trader can even work from home. There are also no legal requirements to submit financial accounts to Companies House. As a result,
Track 25.
Sorry. So please take notes or just write if it's correct or not correct in the chat and why it's not correct, only if it's not correct.
Track 43.
thank you, Dr. Lethbridge, for your introduction. I'd now like to move on to the details of each type of business structure and discuss the advantages and disadvantages of each, starting with the sole trader. This is simply a person who runs a business alone. On the practical side, there's no need to register with Companies House, which means the sole trader is not legally the same as a registered company. The trader can simply choose any name and start trading without paying any fees. There's no need to register an office, so the trader can even work from home. There are also no legal requirements to submit financial accounts to Companies House. As a result, this is the simplest and most straightforward share your earnings with a partner. However, it doesn't mean that you have to do everything alone. You can also employ or give contracts to other people to do work for you, though of course you need to be aware of regulations regarding employing others. So, these are the desirable aspects of being a sole trader, but there are other matters which need careful consideration. When you're in employment, you are taxed at source, which means your employer takes your tax from your earnings every month and sends it to the tax office, so you don't need to worry about it. However, as a document which you send to the tax office once a year showing what you earn from your business and what you spend in running your business. On the positive side, you're only taxed on your earnings after expenses, such as transport, electricity, office equipment and so on. So if you work from home, you can save tax by declaring some of your use of electricity as necessary for your business. Another consideration is that if you earn over a certain amount, you pay a higher rate of income tax, which is higher than the corporation tax rates that companies pay. You'll also have unlimited liability, which means that if you can't pay your business debts, you may lose your house and car to pay for them, as you are your business. Finally, many sole traders find it difficult to take holidays and breaks from the business, and find that they spend far more time working than employed people. The typical traders associated with this type of business structure are skilled manual workers such as builders, plumbers and electricians, or
There is no voice matter.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, now it's fine.
Okay, so let's see what notes you have taken. I think we had enough of listening to answer these questions. So which ones do you think are correct? What about the first one? Is it a correct one or not?
The first one was correct because sole trader are working alone and they don't need to register for a company's house.
Okay, and what about the B?
B also was correct because they can in the listening she said that they do the work while can employ the others also. It's not necessary to do all the works by themselves.
Okay, that's correct. Thank you. Only if it's
And
not
for C, unfortunately, I couldn't hear. C, I think it is correct, but I couldn't hear correctly. It was not clear.
Oh.
And the D is also correct.
Mm-hmm.
Because in listening there was they sometimes they sell their house or their car for paying the tax.
Okay, and E?
It's also correct, I think.
Okay.
Because she said that many people are doing from home, like teachers and computer programmers.
Okay, right. Yeah, that was correct.
Yes,
so these are the answers.
Yeah.
Thank you, Zainab. These are the answers.
B is incorrect. Yeah.
A is correct. B is incorrect. Sole traders may imply other people. Yes, and C is incorrect. Yeah. As you can go to mute, Zainab. Thank you for your answer. And then C is incorrect. Sole traders must pay tax every year, not every month. So they do pay tax, but every year, not every month. D is correct and E is correct. Thank you. Okay, so the 45th one, the fourth one, it says in the listening test, you might need to complete sentences which summarize the information from the listening with one or two words and or a number. So these are the types of questions that half of the sentence is given or more than that, and you will have to write one or two words to complete them. They are the summarization of what is said in the listening. So you will have to fill that out, and then the lecturer is now talking about. Zainab, can you go to mute? I can hear my voice through your device. Thank you. So the lecturer is now talking about the structure, advantages and disadvantages of limited liability companies. Listen and complete the sentence. So again, we have to listen to it, and before listening, we are just reading it very quick. The first one says, shareholders in a limited liability company do not lose their blank space or property to pay debts because liability is limited to the business. So when we read this, we kind of know that in here it's something similar to property and something that they can lose, right? The shareholders can lose. So let's listen for that. And then the second one says a limited company must have a registered address where the company keeps its what and what. So there are two things. And third one is the shareholders must pay what and what on any money they take out of the company as a salary. And the fourth one says, for many people who think about setting up a business, it's a good idea to start as a what and what and form a limited company later. Okay. So let's listen to it.
Track 45.
Thank you, Dr. Lethbridge. The last form of business I'd like to talk about is the limited liability company. The owners of a limited liability company are called members or shareholders, as they own shares in the company. A share is a divided up unit or part of the company. All businesses run the risk of failing or going bankrupt. If a business goes bankrupt, it has to close because it owes money and is not able to pay the money back. As I mentioned before, setting up a limited liability company, like an LLP, means that if the company fails or goes bankrupt, the business owners lose only what they have put into the business and not their own personal goods and property. This is the idea of liability, how much a business owes in debt if it can no longer operate and has to close. For example, if a sole trader goes bankrupt, he or she may need to sell his or her own house and possessions in order to pay any debts, because the business is not separate from the owner. With LLPs and limited liability companies, the owners and the businesses are separate, so property and goods owned by the business can be sold to pay debts, but not property and goods personally owned by the members or company shareholders. Just as with LLPs, limited liability companies, or limited companies for short, must be legally registered with Companies House. This means they must have a registered address where all the company documents and records must be kept. As with LLPs, accounts and annual returns must be submitted every year so that anyone can have a look at the company's finances before doing business with it. The level of administration is higher than with other business structures, and you need to have a managing director and at least one shareholder. In terms of paying tax, the company has to pay corporation tax on its profits, which is far less than income tax on large amounts, especially over around £50,000. However, you also have to pay income tax on any money you take as a salary from your company. As with the other business structures, the company tax assessment must be submitted to the tax office, but for corporation tax rather than income tax. The shareholders also have to submit their own personal tax assessments separately. As we've already mentioned, the company owners must also submit accounts to Companies House. This can all be quite complicated, so it's a good idea to get professional help and advice from an accountant. It's important to remember that running a limited company is more complex than being a sole trader, so it's important to do careful research and consider your situation before deciding which type of business to run. In any case, you could start as a sole trader and, if business is doing well, turn your business into a limited company at a later date.
Okay, so this was about this listening. I'm just gonna go to some tips, and then if we have time, we will come back to its answers. Otherwise, we have one other exercise as well, which is also really important. So you did listen to it. So the tip number 4 says that in the listening test, you will not hear the same words that you read, but you will hear the same information in the same order. So we have already talked about it. It is very common that in the listening, you will not hear the same words which are in the text that you have received, but you will hear the information in the same order. So if you sometimes lose one part, you can just go to the other part because that they are in order. And then it's important to understand when a speaker is making comparisons and contrasts, as it can help you predict and choose the correct information to answer questions. In the listening test, you may need to complete notes which summarize the information in the recording and show how the different points are connected. So about comparisons and contrasts that the speaker is making. So sometimes it can be a little tricky because like they are talking about two things, but at the end you have to find which one is the answer. So this prediction and understanding these contrasts are important, and also when there is summarization of the information, we have to know what to listen for. And the sixth one says it's essential that you use the correct spelling. As we said, spelling is important. And even if you answer the right thing, but there is a very little spelling mistake, you will lose the mark for that. So this one is another listening. This one is more common in the IELTS. So the lecturer is discussing the advantages and disadvantages of different businesses, the structures, using various expressions to compare and contrast them, listen and use the words and phrases in the box to complete the notes. So mostly in these types of questions, you won't have these words, like you won't have them given. You will have to listen to them, and they are not all like parts of these sentences, like how or similarly the negative side. On the other hand, the same is true, like not these types of parts of sentences. They are more of the information, like the name of something or some date or something, as you might have seen in the tests. So you have 30 seconds to read through these and see what information are there, and then I'll play the listening. Can you see it clearly, Zainab?
Yes, it's clear.
Great. So you can check. Okay, so let's go to the listening. Which number was it? 46.
Between each business structure. 46. So, let me summarize the differences and similarities between each business structure. On the one hand, it's fairly simple and inexpensive to set up as a sole trader. You don't have to worry about lots of administration and financial organization, and you can keep total control of your business and decision-making. On the other hand, you may end up paying more in tax than you would as a limited company. You are personally responsible for your debts and losses, and it might be more difficult to get valuable contracts if your business does not have limited liability. With regard to partnerships, there are two kinds: simple partnerships and LLPs. In comparison with sole traders, partnerships have the benefit of more people to plan and make decisions. It's easier to take care of the business when one partner is not able to take an active part, and it can also be easier to borrow money than for a sole trader. On the negative side, liability is shared among the partners, and having more than one owner can make things more complicated when there are disagreements or if the business needs to be brought.
Okay, so it's enough. You're out of time. You can see the answers, which are for this part. So the first one is on the other hand, second one is the negative side, third one is the same is true, fourth one is however, and fifth one is similarly. So thank you for coming, Zainab, and I will see you tomorrow. At the end of this,
Thank you.
You're welcome. Just before that, at the end of this lesson in the book, there is the exam skill, so do that. And you do have the listening. The link is in the group. You can play the listening through that and do that one as well. Okay, so thank you for coming and have a great day. Bye.
Thank you.